on. And without further ado, let's dive into it, right?
Yes, awesome. I'm super excited.
Could you start by sharing a little bit about your journey and what inspired to dive into Instagram marketing?
I mean, marketing isn't really new in a way. Like I've always worked in sales and marketing, and then 2020 happened, COVID and lockdown, and it kind of put a stop on my career in that moment. It was temporary, but I was put on furlough, so I was temporarily unemployed. And I used to work as a brand manager, and marketing was entirely my world in that sense. But then I decided, okay, well, I can't work right now for these multinational brands. Maybe I can go to Instagram. I've always been really into like social media and Instagram. And I thought maybe I can just go on there. And instead of helping these big multinational brands, I can help some small business owners. I can help creators with their marketing strategies. And that's honestly how it started. It was this random lockdown idea, and then, 2 weeks later, I had 5 clients. And then, 2 months later, I was making $5,000 a month. And 3 months after that, it was $10,000 a month. And then I remember that I could go back to my corporate job, and they're like, okay, Laura, let's come back to work. Lockdown is lifted. And I was like, okay, guys, well, I'm not coming back. I'm doing something far more meaningful now. I'm helping small business owners grow their businesses with marketing instead of, helping amazing big brands but become bigger. It felt far more meaningful to me. And so yeah, it was, to be honest, it was COVID that sparked the idea for me to just go my own route. Marketing wasn't new, but doing it that way was very much a new thing for me.
Shout out COVID.
So
Some good things came out.
In 2024, many creators face changes to their stats. A lot of people online have been struggling with changing algorithms. You also mentioned that despite all your previous experiences, you were also last year affected and were losing followers for months. You didn't give up. You transformed your approach. You got your numbers to skyrocket. Can you break down what exactly did you do to turn the things around?
Yeah, of course. So in 2020, I started growing really nicely. And I think it was in 2023 that I hit 100,000 followers. And I was like, okay, amazing. 100,000 followers. This felt like such a big milestone. But then Instagram was such a different universe. And suddenly, instead of growing, I was stagnating. And at some point, I even started losing followers. So I genuinely thought, okay, my account's completely dead. Like I was reaching 1,000 people with my content, even though I had 100,000 followers. Like it felt really, really bad. And then at some point, I just decided, okay, enough is enough. Like I didn't get this far to just stop here. I know marketing, I know content. Things have changed, but let's change it in my account as well, and just start with a clean slate. And if there's anything I can say on that, it's just dropping the ego. It's dropping anything I thought I knew and just looking at it with fresh eyes and thinking like, no, I can do better. The branding isn't hitting. The content isn't hitting. This could be better. And I just took a month off Instagram to just really sit down and analyze it as if I'm my own client, with a fresh perspective. Came up with a new strategy, showed up and really went for it as well. Like I started even posting twice a day, and I just thought, okay, I have this new strategy. I'm going to put it to the test as soon as I can and just get results quickly, and especially also data quickly so I can keep optimizing it. And then, yeah, then things started blowing up again. I started growing 10, 12,000 followers a month again. So, now I'm probably hitting 140,000 followers in the next 24 hours. So, things are growing again, and it's been really nice to see that. And when I think of my growth in the last few months was actually much quicker than the growth that I had a couple of years ago. So a lot of people think, oh, when you have a dead account, you can't revive it. Or a lot of people think that the golden years of Instagram might be behind us. I would say, like, my story right now is kind of proof that you can take, let's say, a dead account and just start with a clean slate and turn things around. It's not the easiest thing, but it's definitely possible with a good strategy and with a bit of grit to also show up consistently.
You mentioned, first of all, it's crazy that you could do it, and it's also, I think, so abnormal that he could, as you said, let go of your ego and kind of look inside yourself and approach it as if you don't know anything. but also as if you, yeah, it's amazing.
Contradictory. It's like, don't waste that, but also let's not look at what we've done and see how
Yeah.
better.
Another point you highlighted is the brand, but also I guess we can say the vibe of someone's content. You mentioned the branding played a significant role, that you tried several times to rebrand. Um, do you think some aesthetics are more convertible into stats and boost growth better than others?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Instagram is a visual platform. There was a time where maybe it mattered a little bit less, but I think right now content creation is so accessible. So what makes one person stand out over someone else is their brand, is their vibe, it's all these things. So 100%, I think branding is super important when it comes to some aesthetics working better than others. Just like always, you have trends. Like there are, like you have it in fashion. If you go onto Pinterest and you look at what the trends are, you'll see visual trends. Now, the aim is to look at that and see how can I get inspired and use it as a source of inspiration. That doesn't mean seeing one person's branding and copying it, because I can tell you that usually doesn't work so well, just because then people will see your content and think it's someone else's, and it's actually, if anything, confusing. You're not building your own universe. So you do want to come up with something unique, but draw inspiration from maybe different industries or trends that you're seeing, whether that is a vintage element, whether that is more earthy tones, whether that is looking at, I don't know, some Gen Z trends that are happening that you really resonate with, and you're like, okay, I can bring it like this into my content. That kind of stuff does really help you stand out, because like I said, there's a lot of people creating and you want to build your own universe and have your own spin on it. So you do create something that's far more unique and that makes people want to follow you over someone else. Because when you think about it, I talk about marketing. I didn't invent marketing. It's the way that I talk about marketing and the way that I do my branding and the way that I share my content that makes people want to follow me. But it's not because I invented content marketing. Like I didn't, obviously. So, you have your own spin on it. That's the most important thing. And it's the same with like branding. So yeah, I think looking at trends, getting inspired, but not copying them is a big one, because people tend to look at a trend and copy it entirely, but then it becomes mainstream. And then you don't stand out because everyone else is doing the same thing, using the same exact font, using the same exact colors. And that's something we want to avoid, of course.
So, uh, arriving at a aesthetic or vibe that works for you is just taking parts of things and trying them on.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
like that.
what is vibe, by the way? Everyone's new that word. Do
I
you have a
think
definition for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if I'm talking about life or in my Instagram. I would say my Instagram vibe, it's like the vibe that you create on Instagram will be in so many elements. It's the visual elements, like whether it's design in your carousels or whether it's even the visual elements in your reels, let's say, like your background, the elements, like the props you use, visual hooks, things like that. It's the way you talk and the language you use. You can decide to have, let's say, a bubbly tone of voice or very like no fluff, straightforward tone of voice. There's so many things you can do even with the language that you use. And then it's also even the content itself, like what are you talking about and in which way do you talk about it? So there's like a lot of elements to it, but it all comes together and creates a vibe. It could even be the songs that you add to your carousels and the background music in your reels. Like for me, in my branding, I get very inspired by this kind of editorial, a bit more like French Parisian aesthetic. And, I really think about it like, oh, I want to use, let's say, French instrumental music because it makes me feel like I'm in Paris and it's like, fashion week or something. So you can get quite creative with it, but whatever that is that inspires you, and it can also shift, right? That's a beautiful thing about, using trending elements. You want to keep evolving and keep things interesting as well.
Um, but I wanted to also dive into something that we've started to discuss. Many major creators even feel frustrated with a new Instagram algorithm when it favors new content from people you don't follow over the post of accounts you follow. And for older accounts, so we all know that sometimes maybe the engagement is only 10% of their follow account. Can you share 2, 3 actionable strategies how to increase visibility, how to re-engage existing followers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I talked about it before, but I think if you notice that your content isn't getting the visibility or the reach that you're hoping for, it's starting with a clean slate, and that is maybe rebranding. A lot of us don't think about it, but people do get sick of a certain aesthetic if you haven't changed your branding in a long time. Like at some point, I used the same branding, I think, for easily 2, 3 years, and I didn't change it. No wonder my content reach went down. Like people are just sick of seeing the same piece of content almost. Like even if the content inside it was different, after a while, it was just kind of like visually became mainstream that it wasn't jumping out anymore. So I would say number one, think of your brand. Like honestly, it is such a big thing because it's a visual platform. Then number two, when it comes to the content itself, we're talking about indeed reaching non-followers. So create for non-followers. Like don't assume that people know what you talk about. I see this mistake quite a lot that people use, let's say, our expert language or speak to their current clients instead of to new people who don't even know them yet. Like you really want to think of, okay, but someone's going to be swiping on this app, doesn't know who I am, and it needs to be relevant to them. So it's really like shifting that because, especially, I mean, I work with a lot of business owners. So they, for example, sometimes are so in the head of their clients, which is amazing, but their clients already bought from them. They're not strangers on the internet. So their clients might engage with their content, which is great, but they're not new people. They already know, like, and trust you. So for those new people who don't know, like, and trust you yet, how can you make your content relevant to them? Make it about them and like really focus on that. And then maybe the last thing would be like keep optimizing as well. Like as much as I took a step back and I said for a whole month, okay, I'm creating a new strategy, I'm rebranding, I'm doing all these things, I still had to optimize. So I actually rebranded more than once in that time because I quickly realized, okay, this branding isn't hitting. I need to make a shift. Okay, this content isn't hitting. I need to make a shift. This is picking up better than this. Okay, so I'm going to create more content on this topic because clearly people seem to like this. So unfortunately, anything content marketing is the reality is people change. And that means that your content needs to change and keep updating. And you can't just do the work once and think that it's done forever. And now for the next 5 years, I don't worry about it. It's like, no, you do want to be like looking at your analytics. You do want to rethink your strategy like every now and then, have maybe a monthly check in of like, okay, what worked, what didn't work. And let's double down on this and change this and this and this and run little different experiments as well without like the ego getting involved. I like talking about mindset in content because I know that there's a lot for us, creators. You putting yourself out there. We sometimes have expectations of what we put out there, and they're not always fulfilled. So it's also important to just kind of post and this, like, kind of not have those expectations, to just look at the data with fresh eyes and letting it speak to you, and then just double down on what works.
All in all, continuous improvement, basically,
Yes.
never stopping to improve.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about gaining followers, lately there's been buzz about Instagram's trial reels feature, where a person can test their content but having it shown only to their non-followers. Some creators claim they gained thousands of followers from one video using that. Have you tried the feature, and what are your thoughts on it?
So this is so funny because I've seen the feature and everyone talking about it, but I don't have the feature. Like I don't have it on my current Instagram. I swear I'm in the last batch of people that gets new features on Instagram. Like I got like the over 10 slide carousels like a month ago. Like I think everyone else had it like months ago. So I'm very late in having features. I don't have the feature. So I'm very excited for when I do get access to it. But I think it's also in a way interesting, and I hear this a lot in my own community, that people say, yeah, but I can't do this because I don't have access to this feature. I mean, let me be proof of the fact you don't need those features. Like it's so cool that they're coming out with it, and when you do get access to it, definitely test it. But your content will do the growth. It's not Instagram doing another update or another feature that is going to save your account.
Interesting. I think we'll come back to this point a bit later. But again, since we're talking about um, showing your content to non-followers, account bios or highlights used to be very important, the most important, to seduce a person into following you. Nowadays, people don't necessarily need to open your profile since they can follow you from the Reels feed. Let's talk about the most common ways for people to start following an account. And what do you think motivates someone to hit the follow button? And what makes the biggest impact into seducing someone to follow you?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think when someone finds you, I always explain this as a concept of like they find you through, let's say, the Reels tab, the Explore feed, even in their homepage. And it needs to feel like they found one golden nugget. They're like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And then they will click on your profile, hoping to find more of those. So, yes, your bio is important, your profile picture, all those things, they matter. But what will really make people want to follow you is then the rest of your content being aligned with that piece of content. So sometimes people go viral with a trend and it doesn't fit their content strategy. And then they go viral, but it doesn't add, like they don't get new followers. The reason is simple. People found this piece of content great, but the rest on your of your feed content is not like that. So ideally, you want to go viral with a piece of content that fits your content strategy. So when people find it and they look at your profile, they're like, wow, I want to save every carousel, every reel that this creator put out because it's all exactly what I'm looking for. You know, it fits that same sort of goal that I'm trying to achieve or problem I have and just kind of binge watch everything. So they almost become like obsessed with your content, being like, oh my God, I need to follow this person because they're putting stuff out there that I really want to see. Um, so I guess it's consistency in your content that is a big one, and not getting too distracted with like, yeah, but I had this idea and I'm trying to jump on this trend. You can do that, but if that even still goes viral and doesn't fit your other content, it's not gonna reach to more followers. So it's like, you know, a little bit of a wasted opportunity. Sorry, Bryce. Yeah, exactly.
And you'll often see people that go viral with one thing, and then they start doing too much of the same thing. So their older followers like, oh wait, that's not the vibe we used to follow them for, and they have to choose the trade-off. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it's interesting. Um, Let us know, by the way, guys, where you're watching from. Post your stories, post a screenshot of this into your stories if you're watching. We'll repost you afterwards if you tag us, and Laura probably will as well. If you're new to Prequel, give us a follow. If you've seen Laura's content for the first time, also give her a follow so we can all stay connected. And we'll get back to a discussion. Many experts recommend using sales funnels to gain followers. For example, offering free value, free guides, free resources in exchange for being followed. Do you think that strategy is effective?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love Instagram, but if you're running a business, you also want to run it offline, meaning not only on Instagram. So building your email list is one of the most important things that you do as a business owner and even as a creator, because then you have people in more of a, yeah, I would say locked universe where you don't rely on an algorithm. So if tomorrow you want to communicate something important, you know, you have an email list, and having a freebie or a free guide or these PDFs, that really helps to get them on there, because obviously you want to make sure that you give people value. But also, and again, that's, I'm saying this because I work with a lot of business owners, it helps to only deliver free stuff on Instagram and not focus too much on selling the product directly. Because people don't go on Instagram necessarily to constantly be sold to. They go on Instagram for entertainment or inspiration or maybe education, and you can get them on your email list. But by email, it's a little bit different. People are opening your email, they have time, maybe have time, but you know, it's different, right? So the attention span is a little bit also different. So 100%, I would say to anyone who's looking to monetize their audience, building an email list with free guides is everything. Just for maybe, I guess, giving some data on how we do it. Like, we focus on a couple of different freebies to grow our email list, and we grow our email list on a monthly basis by about 10,000 subscribers. But that's actually really good, because that means that around 70% of our monthly Instagram growth is converting, because like I also have a business partner, so I'm talking about both accounts together. 70% of that audience growth is converting into our email list, which is amazing, because we're not just growing on Instagram, we're also growing our business behind the scenes with the email list, which is what also often leads to the conversions into our offers and our digital products and so forth. So yeah, I do think it's super important, and it helps to just kind of separate those two, because when you focus too much on selling on Instagram, that's when your growth will usually plummet.
And you want to diversify. You don't want to put all your eggs into one basket.
Exactly, that as well.
And since we spoke about all these ways of gaining followers, your OG followers that are there for your vibe, the ones that you obtain through viral content, the ones that you obtain in exchange for freebies, how is a ratio between them impacting your growth in the long run or your engagement in the long run? Does it matter if you have too much of those viral ones or you don't have enough of them?
I think it all depends on whether that viral piece of content was relevant to your business and the rest of your content. If I go viral with a piece of content that fits my content strategy perfectly, those people that that I reached are still my ideal clients, most probably for the majority of it. So I think that is most important. Now, when it comes to, let's say, having an older following and stuff, I do think it's important to keep growing with new people, because it's almost normal that people follow you, because like we've now been in the game for like 4.5 years. So it's been a little while. So you see these shifts and, in business and Instagram and so forth. And one thing that I've realized is that it's okay that people also unfollow you. Like, it's very normal that they follow you, they learn something, but at some point maybe they outgrow you because you're still talking to maybe the same segments that they now, grew out of. And that's also perfectly fine. So that's why you also have to be aware of, like, I need to keep growing. I can't just like build my entire business on this one growth spurt that I had. Like, no, we want to diversify. And also, more importantly, those loyal people are on your email list anyway. So, that's where you can still keep talking to them. Most probably they're even in, let's say inside your business in some type of offers and programs where you have a much closer connection to begin with. With my business partner, we often talk about Instagram being what we call in our business the top of the funnel. So it's the first touch point. It's where people meet you and get to know you, but it's not necessarily where people necessarily always convert immediately into clients and all of that. Like, Instagram doesn't have to do everything. Some of that stuff happens behind the scenes as well. So you want to keep getting new people into your community and grow that further as well.
That's such exhaustive answer. Thank you so much. I want to pick up some questions from the audience, which I see in the comments. One of them is, how do you avoid getting hidden by the algorithm? After a few consecutive posts, it is incredibly noticeable how the algorithm decreases your exposure and therefore view rates, and it can be frustrating. What?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think a lot of people often think is that they think they're shadow banned. That's something you can actually check. You can go to your Instagram settings and check the status of your account. If everything looks green there, meaning green checks of like it's fine, you have no problems, then Instagram isn't limiting your reach. Then it's just your content that isn't hitting with the audience that is seeing it. And then they do limit your reach, but it's purely based on the fact that it didn't have enough watch time or interactions or shares and all those things. So that is an important distinction, because I know I get this question a lot and people thinking they're shadow banned. But often, I mean, and this is, I guess, like a little bit of tough love. Often we find these external reasons why something isn't working. I could have definitely believed that my account was completely dead and, not reaching people anymore because it was old and had old followers and blah, 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 but that wasn't serving me. Even if to some extent that was the case, it's still going to be up to me to change it around. Like, I'm not going to wait for external things to change. But if you are like shadow banned and you see like I mean, I don't know if I should call it shadow banned, but if you have status problems on your account, you'll see it there, and then Instagram will also tell you what is like kind of limiting your reach and how you can fix that as well. But that's then a conversation you can have with Instagram, and then that could be the solution. But overall, most of the time, it's content that just doesn't perform well enough to stand out in, indeed, at the end of the day, a very competitive landscape. There's a lot of creators or a lot of people doing great stuff. So we want to rise above that and find our own unique lane where you suddenly don't have to struggle with that anymore.
Uh, Thank you so much. I hope that was useful to Ian. At Ohana FMG is asking, I'm a music artist, content creator. Out of all the social media platforms, is Instagram the best platform for my business and content to grow?
Okay. So I don't know what kind of business does this person have? Does
Music artist and content creator. Music
okay.
artist.
Okay. Well, I think at the end of the day, if music artist, content creator, you can look at also several platforms, right? You can create content, let's say on Instagram, but also post it on TikTok and stuff. So there's a lot of ways that you can be in more than one place. But yeah, I think Instagram is for sure a place you want to be. It's one of the more mature platforms out there. And I think it's also when you then specifically look at music and stuff, it's a very interesting place to be because I remember, well, actually, it started mainly in 2020 where people were like, creators were blowing up on Instagram because music became such a big thing on Instagram as well, thanks to like obviously TikTok paving the way. So yeah, you want to be on Instagram. That doesn't mean that you have to put all your eggs in one basket. But what I can share from my experience, I've been on other platforms before. I've done YouTube. I actually have an audience on LinkedIn as well. I've done TikTok, repurposed into, let's say, YouTube shorts and whatnot. And I did notice that from a business point of view, Instagram gave me the most loyalty and also the most clients, specifically to convert for my business. So I love Instagram and I will always preach for that. But that doesn't mean that you can't repurpose your content into other platforms. You might need to change it a little bit to like really fit that platform, but it is 100% possible for you to be in several places.
Um, Thank you. Speaking of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, Instagram CEO, recently shared their development plans for 2025, emphasizing focus on what he calls creativity and originality. In your opinion, what can Instagram even mean under creative and original content? And how can creators ensure their content remains so?
I mean, number one is obviously like make sure it's your own content, as in like a lot of people repost other people's content as a way to go viral. Number one, that's against terms and conditions of Instagram. So most probably you will not get a lot of reach because that's the kind of stuff that can lead to issues on your account. But also more importantly, like obviously the algorithm picks up on the fact that this has been posted before and then limits your reach. Um, Creative and original content, I would say it's indeed creating content from scratch, but it's also having a unique twist on things that are happening. So it's really interesting to see trends like I talked about before happening, let's say on Instagram, and looking at that, but having your own twist on it. And that's where like people often go viral because it's like playing on a need of people already liking XYZ piece of content, song, trend, like whatever you want to call it, but you made it your own. And that's when things get ultra viral. So I think it's just like looking at, yes, the landscape is there, but like always make sure that you create it entirely with your own voice, your own branding, and all of that.
Uh, I also have a question again from the audience, um, similar to your case. When we're branding, should one continue with the same IG account or create a new one and start from scratch? Obviously, you stuck to keeping the same one, but what do you think about the option of starting a new one?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, that's a question that a lot of people have. If you don't have a big audience, you can always start from scratch. They talk about on the algorithm that new creators get more opportunities. Now, do I believe that's the solution to everything? No, I think you can like very much keep your account and revive it entirely. And if you have somewhat an audience already, then I would honestly just pivot that account and keep it unless it's a completely different industry. I don't know, like let's say you used to talk about fashion and now you're suddenly going to talk about meditation. Maybe just start a new account because it's just going to work against you that people aren't wanting to hear about meditation because you just shift it. Unless you again have a huge audience and a personal brand, then you can go through that pivot, but it's not easy. But overall, if you stay within, let's say, the similar like market, then I wouldn't start from scratch if you already have some type of audience. Like it is 100% possible to just revive it. What I would recommend is take a step back from your account. Like I took a month off and I really needed that because you just want to avoid being in this kind of doing mindset of just constantly creating and doing and just like being on autopilot, because it's the autopilot that often creates this kind of content that after a while isn't growing your account anymore, that isn't innovative enough anymore, that isn't original enough anymore to stand out. So sometimes you really do need to step back and even go in nature if you have to, like whatever inspires you to just take a step back and
Much
look at
less.
eyes. Yeah, exactly. Just like resource a little bit. But you 100% can revive an account. Like I've done it. My business partner, her account was also completely dead. She did it. We have so many clients who've been in the same situation and were able to do it. So it is possible.
And for my last question, you previously spoke about oh, it's just someone's content not performing enough. It's not Instagram's fault. So I want to go back to talking about Instagram specifically. Do you think platforms purposely reshuffle the rules every now and then to make earning for creatives or growing for creatives more and more difficult? So they move the goalposts every time. Once a certain amount of people have achieved popularity or have achieved virality or have achieved stats.
Yeah. I can understand how people can feel that way. It's not completely crazy to think that way. But I would personally think that at the end of the day, I think human behavior is constantly changing. I think what people are interested in is constantly changing. And I believe that these platforms are just trying to keep up with that. And the algorithm is constantly reflecting that. So it's just like seizing opportunities as into, okay, people are moving more towards video, let's create reels. People are moving more towards um, whatever trend, let's create this feature because we see a need for it, because people need more closed communities or XYZ. So I think it's just the reality of, I would say, being a good creator and probably having a successful social media platform is understanding human behavior, understanding that people change, attention span changes. Like,
Thanks for sticking out for me. It was a bit dramatic, I guess.
it was a dramatic exit. It's like,
Yeah, like it's just tired of the combo. No talking about Instagram too much. Um, well, I guess we have time for uh, maybe a round of brief questions. Would you be down for that?
yes, sure, let's go.
Amazing. So, Belgium has high taxes, but its salaries get indexed every year across the country. Would you prefer Belgian taxes and Belgian salary indexation, or no taxes and no indexation?
I, it's a difficult one because I'm looking at it as being a business owner, right? Um, so both taxes and salary indexation will affect me because I'm not a worker at someone else's company. But to be diplomatic, I will say I'm leaving Belgium, so that says quite enough about the situation. I'm actually planning on moving quite soon to more southern destinations and also move my business. So yeah.
Interesting. So, which will you miss more, beer or fries?
Price, because I actually don't drink beer. And the fun fact, I used to work for a global beer brand, and on my interview, they asked me, "Oh, do you like beer?" And I was like, "I don't drink beer." They still hired me though. Like apparently, all my marketing skills were more important. But yeah, no, I don't drink beer. I'm not so Belgian after all.
That's why they got you on. They were like, we need an external view. We need an outsider opinion.
Exactly.
Okay, and the last random question: retiring early or ensuring your loved one retires early?
I would say ensuring that my loved ones retire early. I have a bit of a personal story with it because, well, number one, I actually retired my fiance as soon as my business took off. I retired him because I was like, we don't need a 9 to 5 with 4 weeks of holidays stopping my jam right now. We're gonna travel, we're gonna do stuff, we're gonna enjoy freedom. But also for him to chase his real dreams that are just outside the typical corporate path. And so I would say retiring my loved ones, but I also feel like, funny enough, I have this interesting relationship with retirements about myself. I don't feel this need to retire because my business is very passive and I actually love what I do. Like, for sure, I'm sure at some point I'll take a step back in certain areas and I'll probably have different businesses even over the next 10, 20 years. But I'm not so obsessed with this idea of retiring myself. Like, I actually love what I do. And I think it's important as a business owner to build the business in a way that I keep enjoying it and make it relatively passive, but still do the things that I love every day. So, yeah.
think you might be too young. We all are too young to think about retirement anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Laura, thank you so much. It has been an absolutely immensely pleasurable conversation, and your energy has been a treat for real.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been amazing, and honestly, some really interesting questions to think about them. So
We've been trying, you know, we spent like 2 weeks working on that, like so we don't doubt that.
that's awesome. I love that. Well, thanks so much for having me
Thank you
here.
so much. Everyone, give Laura a follow, give us a follow, and stick around on our account for announcements of new guests and new events in 2025. Have a good one, Laura, and
Thank you.
see y'all guys.